vibrant cultural sites, yet the costs often seem overwhelming. But with Visit Tanzania for Less, exploring this East African gem on a budget is not only possible, but incredibly rewarding. Whether you're a solo backpacker, a volunteer, or just a budget-conscious traveler, we provide valuable insights and resources to make your journey unforgettable without breaking the bank. Book your trip now with just a $300 deposit and flexible monthly payments until your travel date. For more travel inspiration and tips, follow us on Instagram or visit us at visittanzaniaforless.com. Visit Tanzania for Less, your dream adventure within reach.
Good evening or good afternoon. Welcome to Community Focus. I am Melvin Burns, and usually I'm here with my partner, Gregory T. Roberts. Brother Gregory T. is healing. He had some surgery earlier in the week, and we expect him to be back soon better than ever. But uh, please send your thoughts and prayers and warm wishes out to him as he's recovering. He's probably home watching this show today. But welcome to this Friday's edition of Community Focus. A couple of things before we introduce our guest. Weather, local weather. Today, low of 30, high of 38. Tomorrow, partly sunny, low 22, high 39. Sunday, you need your sunglasses, low 33, high of 43. Monday, low 36, high 48. Tuesday, low 36, high of 47. Next Wednesday, be a low 33, high of 48. And next Thursday, low of 31, high of 47. And eventually we will hit those 50s. I feel it coming. Top news stories of the week. Tuesday, our President Trump, addressed a joint session of Congress. Did you get a chance to check that out? A lot of information. The longest presidential address to Congress in history, over an hour, almost an hour and a half. Number two, local sports. Sorry, most of the local sports teams, Muskegon Mosquitoes, are out of the men and women's basketball tournaments. But want to congratulate all those teams that made a run and gave their best during this season. Um, Last Sunday, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences gave out awards. We call them the Academy Awards. Do we still watch this show? How did it go? I caught a few bits and pieces. I'll admit I didn't watch the whole show. Honora seemed to win a number of awards. I'll be honest with you. Never heard of the movie until that night. Um, I'm gonna go back to sports because I'm a big sports fan. What in the world is going on with the Lakers? Luca is the man in LA now. All right. And then uh, let's bring it back local here. This is so much of news as a challenge. What's going on in your local community? With us not having a print local media, daily local media source. What's going on at your city council? What's going on in your community? We had a number of events this past week, couple with police, couple of um, court cases came out of the county building. How do you keep up with your local news? Just a thought to throw out there for you. But that's our top five news stories. Our program is sponsored by Bishop Upholsteries. I want to thank them for being a sponsor. See the Bishop for all of your uh, car upholstery needs. All right. Again, today's show, you may have in the past week or two heard there's been several different initiatives going on concerning shopping, not shopping, boycotting. Today we have representatives on from the Black Chamber of Commerce. So we're going to talk about a couple of issues. Among those is the 40-day fast. If you have not heard about it, that's okay. You're going to hear about it and be informed today. Will you join me in welcoming to the show Ron and Braxton? I apologize for not getting their last names, from the Black Chamber of Commerce. All right. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yes. Good afternoon, Melvin. How folks?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay. Would you introduce yourselves and then tell folks a little bit about you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ron Busby, Ron Busby Jr., and head of the product team here at Buy Black, which is we really focus on, we're a directory and a national certification for Black-owned businesses. Our whole focus is on providing financial and educational tools to Black-owned businesses. What we like to say is that our focus is on getting Black-owned businesses access to the community, capital, and customers that really define the make or breaks when it comes to business. But yeah, that's who I am.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I'll follow that up. I'm Braxton. So Ron eloquently described kind of what we do here at the Buy Black platform. I myself head up the engineering operations at Buy Black. So we're a tech-forward platform dedicated to providing Black folks, both consumers and business owners, with the tools they need in order to buy Black and capitalize Black businesses.
Okay. And we'll talk about the platform a little bit more, but I want to start off. We'll see this flyer, this notice about a 40-day fast. And well, like any fast, that means we're refraining from something. Talk to us about the 40-day fast.
Yeah, I can give a little bit of a context. So at some point in time, basically kind of right after the inauguration of this current president, Pastor Jamal Bryant had reached out to us, but also wanted to make a bigger statement around some of the attacks on DEI. And so there were a flurry of executive orders that were coming out that were really attacking at the heart of what is an inclusive economy and an inclusive democracy. And what was really concerning was to see that there were a number of corporations that were ultimately shying away from some of their commitments that they had made. And so one that had really kind of shown as an important sort of pivot point was Target. And so Target, whose headquarters is in Minneapolis, is the headquarters where George Floyd was ultimately killed and murdered. They had a particular and outsized relationship to the discussions around racial inequality and racial reckoning, and so it made some commitments in their financial and bottom lines about how they can be more inclusive in their supply chains, in their employee relations, and in their executive teams, and how they could make more commitments at a local level in terms of investments in Black communities.
Absolutely.
And so for us, our real focus is on making sure that we build accountability across the board. And so when we looked at that, and Jamal Bryant asked us to figure out, hey, how can we work together to really elevate Black-owned businesses and really sort of step outside of the consistent buying cycle of buying from these big brands, a fast became a pretty clear way to articulate that. And so that's kind of where and how we got here.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, to kind of speak a little bit to that as well, to Ronald's point, I believe it was in 2021, Target made commitments to spend over $2 billion with Black-owned businesses by the end of 2025, right? They were off track on that number. We don't have the exact metrics, but in light of the rollbacks and the shying away from DEI, that objective has been all but abandoned. And I think one of the core premises of the Target Fast and Jamal Bryant's team, right, is to exercise our political and economic power as a group of people. And then at the end of the fast, actually take analysis and take stock of kind of what the impact was and bring that directly to Target shareholders and Target's board for perspective there. And so I think there is a direct ask and there is a direct sort of analysis component that's meant to kind of drive, that's been being driven out of the fast.
Okay. So as I understand correctly, because that was one of my questions, why Target? Well, why Target, not stuttering. Because of that connection to George Floyd, and $2 billion is a significant commitment to make.
And that they made, right? And that they made it. No one told them to make it.
And also, I think there are oftentimes in these conversations is this idea like, oh, is this a shakedown, right? Is this, are folks trying to, is there somebody who's trying to get a check and get paid for this? One, I've never collected a check from Target, But beyond that, that's not the goal of this. The goal is not necessarily to figure out how we or someone in our orbit gets paid. It's, I think, at the end of the day,
Exactly.
it's about letting folks know that these things do not go unchecked, and that the idea of operating in fear of an administration when ultimately it's your customers that pay the bills. 1 in every $9 at Target is coming from a Black person. And so it really is important to really ultimately make sure they understand that this customer base is here, that they are committed to spending when it makes sense, and that you don't get to sort of toggle in and out of supporting Black people or Black businesses when it becomes convenient or inconvenient.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what are the dates of the 40-day fast?
Well, so we would have started March 5th. So we are, so Ash Wednesday, right? So we're in the throes of it. And then, you can count back from there. And so I'll have to do the math. Honestly, it's all kind of a wash for me. It's
April 17th, I believe.
Okay.
April
Gotcha.
17th.
Yeah.
Okay. And so during this 40-day fast period, what is it we're asking people to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can go back.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the objective is to essentially, spend or withhold spend from Target specifically. When we're thinking about kind of our role in this, and Melvin, I believe this is probably going to be something that we touch on, and something that we've heard folks like Gina Woods and Tabitha Brown speak to. Donna's Recipe is a brand that's sold through Target, and we're wondering about, how is it that Black-owned businesses who are currently vending through Target will be affected. We are trying to provide alternative and direct means to support those business owners right outside of Target. So Ronald mentioned $1 in $9 of Black folks are being spent in Target. What does it look like for us to be able to really focus our efforts and focus our dollar directly to the brands that we want to support there? So regardless of whether or not, you are interested in participating in the fast or boycotting, right? Our objective, sustained outside of buy-ins or boycotts and the whims of certain companies' desire to support, Black businesses or not, is for us to be able to provide people with means to purchase and support from Black businesses directly. And so Donna's Recipe is one example of, the many brands that we have available through Buy Black, but that is sort of the objective, is saying, hey, choose alternative means, ideally direct means, to support those business owners, while also sending that message to Target executives, specifically Target. Yep.
And if I think the goal is not to get folks to spend more, it's to spend more consciously.
Okay.
And so what we are really trying to get folks to understand is that they are not just consumers. They are not just people to be sold to, that we can actually make decisions when it comes to our dollars and our values, that we try to find places that represent that. And so for us, it really is important to step outside of sometimes the convenience trap, where brands and corporations that often have no sincere interest in serving us, right? They are extractive forces in some ways, right? They will take money out, but they don't necessarily put and invest back in. It's important for us to go ahead and say, look, we know that Black-owned businesses are more likely to hire other Black folks, invest in the education and the healthcare of their employees, that those kinds of things are the ways that we have reciprocal relationships with our communities. And that the goal would not be to just get you from buying at Walmart to go buying, or from buying at Target to go buy at
Walmart.
It's actually, hey, how do we build habits and build intentionality around Black-owned businesses that supersede and step outside of just one specific cycle or moment?
Yeah. To Ron's point, those folk, we want to step outside of, I think, allowing big box retailers, generally speaking, to be the arbiters of how we access our own community and how we support our own community.
Okay. And I think it's good to know that you guys acknowledge and know that, we want to look at other ways to not harm those Black people who are businesses that are being highlighted in those stores, those big box stores.
And so I want to say, I think it's really important to do a couple things. One is we recently launched a search experience for Black-owned products. So if you wanted to go to black.us, you can find products in our search experience that are specifically Black-owned, and some of them actually do sell at Target, right? Okay. So we've actually found brands and made sure those brands are available, so that you can actually, I'm fasting from Target, but I'm still going to buy Black-owned products that were on their shelves. And so whether that is looking at Partake, which is a Black-owned cookie brand, whether it's looking at Donna's Recipe, whether it's looking at Sienna Naturals. We've actually, for some of these, certified these businesses as Black-owned, right? We've actually gone through the vetting process of checking their incorporation. We've done the process of checking their tax returns. We're making sure for the businesses that are certified that everything about that is actually not just a face, right? You have sometimes where celebrities will get on here and they'll be like, this is my business. And you have no real insight into that. For our certified businesses, we've done that due diligence, and we've made sure to make a number of those available so that you can find everything from grocery essentials to gardening equipment. And so the fact is that Black folks sell toilet paper and they sell toothbrushes, and we have those available for them, for folks who are interested in finding them. And I think our point is not to complain. Our point is to find alternatives and to find solutions. And so what you will never hear from us is, oh, this is bad. It's bad, and we are going to do everything about it. And so I think anything for the next 4 years and the next 40, our real focus is on having a due diligence around providing answers to a problem.
Absolutely. If I might, and Ron, you mentioned certification, but I don't know if we've necessarily spoken to kind of what the rigor is involved. And I got the seal. I think the mirror's flipped, but that's what's on my background here. Ronald mentioned, what it looks like too, and how we've seen in the past how Black faces on products are often marketing tools and tactics to our community. Because we have an innate desire to, and I think, even we've conducted and are conducting marketing research that does suggest that, 70% of Americans are at neutral or positive on the idea of supporting businesses of color, specifically Black-owned businesses, right? So like that is an amenable concept. There is a difference between putting a Black face on a product and being a Black-owned product or a Black-owned brand. And so certification is a rigorous process. Ron mentioned checking your tax returns, articles of incorporation, your headquarters, to make sure that you are 51% or more majority owned and operated by a Black individual. And so we're very sensitive about what that looks like, right? We'll go, we can take supplementary documents, membership to a Black chamber, ancestry.com, or, your ancestry or lineage reports. But we do a lot of rigor and a lot of the work to validate and verify, hey, you know what? Not only are you supporting a product with a Black face on it, but this is also a Black-owned product. And like Ron mentioned, right, we are at large going to support our own community, hire our own community, employ within our own community at much higher rates than folks who are outside of it.
Okay. So say the website name again.
Yeah, it's byblack.us. And so people often think, oh, you misspelled it. You're missing the U. It should be by Black. But no, I do want to say that because it's really important that people understand it's about coalition and not consumption.
Yes.
Our goal, as I said, it's not about buying more, it's about buying more consciously. And so for us, we're saying, what does it mean for our tools to be built by Black communities, by Black individuals, by Black designers, by Black nonprofits and chambers of commerce? What is it, in any journalism, you have a byline. And so for us, we're saying, this is so much more than me getting you to move $1 from the other place. It's actually about shifting mindsets. And how do we go from moments to movements? How do we ultimately get folks to understand that the 40-day fast will be 40 days? But what we are also really intentionally talking about is, I think both of us are big students of history. And if you look at my background, you'll see political buttons from many foregone eras. But the Montgomery bus boycott was 381 days.
Yes.
And so what we really have to understand is, what does the 400 after the 40 days look like? What are we willing to do beyond just a very specific moment and build movements? And so, we will be launching other solutions and other ways to really support and engage with Black businesses and Black people. But it really does have to be so much more. And so once again, byblack.us. You can find us on social media as well at that handle. But that is what I think really we want to encourage people to think about, is the name is intentional. It is not a mistake.
Yeah. And, could you say something, if we kind of go back historically, bus boycott, we think of Rosa Parks, getting up her seat, but most people don't realize that was a full year. And what that meant was there's people that still had to get to work who rode the buses, who made a sacrifice. carpools and people walking. And so I think one of the things, and this sort of my editorial, why I don't jump on everybody's boycott is one, uh, it takes a sacrifice,
Yeah.
which you guys talk. And then the other thing is there needs to be an objective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we know when folks, but hey, my favorite, whatever is at Target. For you to say, hey, we're trying to provide you some alternatives, I think is important for people. But then the other thing you say, Ron, is this idea of it's not just the negative side of the fast, but we want to present something that helps business people who want to support Black-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses themselves. And I think that's really important part of the message we want to make sure we get out to folks
Absolutely.
during this period.
Yeah. The core objective is not withholding. Yeah. Withholding is not the kind of the ultimate objective for the fast here.
Sure.
And if I can add, I think, to your point, we talk about the Montgomery bus boycotts and we talk about individuals. We might even talk about specific organizations, but we don't talk about, sometimes the Black-owned businesses. The Black-owned taxi companies in the Montgomery bus boycotts actually matched their fees to try to ultimately make sure that people who paid 25 cents to get on a bus could ultimately use the Black taxi companies. There were Black gas stations that operated as couriers, so they could actually have people convene in one place so that they can carpool. It really is important to understand how everything will have to be. We have to use everything in the kitchen sink to get to the outcomes we want to see. But I also want to really point out, and I think you talked about this idea of sacrifice. What we talk about all the time on me and Braxton's job is removing excuses. I can't find Black-owned businesses. Oh, you know what? Well, byblack.us. Oh, there are, it's too hard, or there aren't enough. Hey, they don't sell products. These products aren't good enough. byblack.us. And so for us, it's really removing it's removing the excuses to not engage in this. And we know that, for example, 61% of Black Americans focus and prioritize buying Black during February. 1 in 3 Americans prioritizes buying Black in February.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's a Morning Consult poll. 61% of Black Americans focus on buying Black during Black History Month, right, during February. But 1 in 3 Americans support and engage in prioritizing buying Black during February. Our goal is getting buying Black to February 29th. And what I mean is the day that usually we don't have, that only happens every, it's about extending this discourse further and beyond. And so we also know that it's about 13% of Americans say they buy Black-owned business frequently. So that's like once a week, right? That's about 1 in 4 Black Americans buy, Black. That 13% is 1 in 8. So we know that people already have Black-owned businesses in their neighborhoods, in their communities. They are not far from these businesses, whether that's because they buy them online or because they decide to go in store in our communities. And it's really important to, once again, remove the excuse. And what I would also say is for us, and once again, we can ramble, but I think we think about buying Black from 3 different segments, right? Yeah. So you and I can purchase something, and that's great. We can buy ice cream. We've got Black-owned ice cream at byblack.us. You can buy, a service. You can get a plumber. But at that next level, your corporation, the company you work for, maybe that you own, or the company that you work at, has a procurement process. They have a team of people that buy something, that sells something, that are ultimately making decisions about who are going to be their suppliers. Are they thinking about how to bring Black-owned businesses in that discourse? Are they thinking about, hey, how do we actually have a diverse supply chain that's more resilient and actually is more inclusive? And that third tier is your city, your state, your federal government. Are they thinking about how they can actually not just take tax dollars out of these communities, but actually reinvest in the businesses there? And so my point really is that buying Black is a multimodal, multidimensional conversation that is actually never just about, oh, you or I. It's actually about really making sure that we have a deep requirement from the folks and the stakeholders and the places that we operate, whatever privilege you operate in, whether as a citizen of this country or a C-suite individual. You can ultimately be making decisions about how we can have more inclusive economics when it comes to the bottom lines. So that's one thing I want to also put in there.
You know, one of the things on our program, we got a lot of startup businesses or people maybe a year into their business that are looking for exposure, and we try to give them exposure, encourage them. But this being an educational program, you know, we often we'll share information we've learned, or as they're talking, we always have people tell their story to encourage other people. I say that to say, for folks that listen to our program that are new to business, that may have some thoughts. Well, how do they get in touch with you? How do they bring their business to your website?
Great question, Melvin. I can jump in on that one. I was going to say, so Buy Black is as we mentioned, a directory, a certification platform, but we also are a great entry point into tools and resources for both mature businesses who are looking, like Ronald mentioned. I'm looking to get, contracts with the federal government, although that's a tough time to do that at the moment.
You want to swim upstream, huh?
But we're still fighting the good fight there. Or, like you mentioned, you're a caterer who's just getting off, your first steps, and you're working at your farmer's market and you want to get exposure. Our listing process is completely free. So that's one thing, right? It can take as quick as 10 minutes. And provided that you provide sufficient information, our team will verify your information and you'll be listed, right? You'll be indexable. You have a page that's created. You can socialize that out. We encourage folks who have been, who have been in business for longer than a year, maybe are a little bit more mature, who have their tax returns, go get certified, right? That's that extra additional verification. It also validates that you are 51% or more Black owned, not just a part owner of an operation. That's kind of the two things there. The third piece I will mention is we also sponsor and curate a editorial grant list for businesses, very much so. It's updated on a monthly to bi-monthly basis. And that is another avenue primarily tailored to smaller businesses and startups that will give resources. So that's all available at byblack.us. And the grants, I think, would be a really great note or surface there. And they have everything from, grants that are targeting, woman-owned businesses in particular industries to general grants that are provided by foundations in particular communities. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and that circulates and updates, like I said, on a sort of monthly cadence.
Okay. To our listeners out there, we're on with Ronald Busby and Braxton Gunter. One, we're talking about the 40-day fast, if you want to learn more about that, from shopping at Target. And the other thing we're talking about is just how to support Black-owned businesses. If you're conscious about the fast, and maybe you also having your thought that you want to learn more about how to supporting Black-owned businesses. So we're talking about that also. We're coming down toward the bottom of the half hour. We're going to take a little break. A couple of questions I still want to ask you all concerning the fast. So we're going to be here, folks. Don't go away. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll be right back.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 Black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you. Connect to the world's fastest-growing collection of unapologetically Black and proud media, from podcasts to independent Black-owned radio stations, and access to the important news and music you need. Umoja Radio is from our culture, by our culture, for our culture. The all-new Umoja Radio is available right now on Google Play and the Apple Store. Join the movement. Be empowered.
Okay, we're back. It was pretty quick. Again, I'm Melvin Burns. I'm driving the ship solo today. My partner Greg is out. Having some great discussion. Have you participated since March 5th in the 40-day fast from shopping at Target? What are your thoughts about that? Do you think it's significant and relevant that we not shop at any business if they don't support Black or don't honor their commitments to other Black businesses? I want to welcome back our guests, Ron Busby and Braxton Gunter. All right, welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you, Melvin.
Okay, for folks that might be joining us at the bottom of the hour, we'll briefly introduce yourselves again, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Ron Busby from Buy Black.
Absolutely. And Braxton Gunter, also from Buy Black, head of engineering. Melvin, I want to give my regards to Gregory. I hope he's feeling better.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure he's listening, and we appreciate that. Let me ask you, I'm old enough, a little older than you guys, that when you talked about the idea was if you're a black-owned business, I can remember like the Jeffersons, put white people in the front so people don't know you're black-owned. That it was almost a pejorative to say you were a black-owned business. I think we've turned the corner on that to a degree, uh, except for the federal government. I think we've kind of turned the corner on that, but talk about that. Even this idea sometimes, and maybe some people still have that. If you're a black-owned business, you kind of want to hide that to some degree.
So I'll give just some really recent research that we've done with Ipsos. So we did some recent research, and it came after the inauguration and going into February. But we really wanted to understand: is DEI debt? Is it toxic to identify as a black-owned business? What is the radioactivity of this? And so, Braxton kind of referenced this, but 70%, 69% of Americans basically said that they do believe that racism is at the core of the reason why Black Americans are not able to access the same economic opportunities, or not economically as equal as other races and other communities. But the other stat that I think is really interesting is when businesses identified as by Black certified businesses. So we talked about that BLACK certification. Consumers were 30% more likely to want to buy the product because they understood that ultimately this was something that had quality, that had gone through vetting, that it was ultimately a way to participate in economic repair, right? That started that kind of pointed out, hey, like 70% of people understand that racism is impacting the economics. And so they're willing to pay to engage with Black-owned businesses when they know who they are. And so we are really trying to encourage folks to lead with identity and ultimately know that your identity as a Black-owned business also has a customer base. I think that the idea that we need to tailor our messages always for white consumers also means that we leave Black consumers that are really interested in supporting them out in the lurch. But also there are white consumers that are like, I actually don't mind supporting Black businesses. I actually do want to engage with them. And so it's never just black and white, but it's also never something that I think we can give a universal answer on. Hey, look, that is buying Black is not cool, or folks don't really support that. I think there's a lot of legitimacy in leading with that. And you wouldn't see so many folks participate in a kind of digital blackface to get the clout of having all these Black celebrities do these things if they didn't see the value in it.
Yeah. I like that digital blackface. I have to remember. I might have to use that one again.
Ron,
yeah. So I saw Black people on the billboard, but they're not here in the business. You say something, and I know you guys have technology background. You throw out statistics, and for some of us, we look for, it feels good to shop at a Black business. It feels good if my company supports a Black business. We had a young lady on a couple of weeks ago who was from the DEI background, and she said, I want statistics. I want the company president or the HR person to get back on me and say, once we did this DEI training, this is how it affected my business. Otherwise, businesses are there to make money, and if we're saying diversify your business, diversify your customer base, diversify your supply chain, we want that to have a positive effect on your business. Absolutely. Not a negative effect. And so we quote things like, look, people are looking to support this business. People want to know there's a Black organization stands behind you and says, yes, this is a business you can support. Those aren't negatives. And we have numbers, real statistical numbers that show these things mean something and they have value. So
I think our accountability as well, Melvin. And I think that's really important as well, right? When you talk about numbers are how we keep ourselves accountable. And so when we're talking about what does progress look like and what does advancement look like, it's really important to have, you can't know what you don't track. Yes. And I think that's a really important point. We're not actually just talking about feelings. We're not just talking about what is ethically or morally just, which I think you can make that argument. But what we are saying is, hey, research does suggest that this is actually a net positive for your business. So the message to a target, and again, singling them out, but also not singling them out, right? And realizing this is actually a pervasive issue within the big box retailer space, is that we are not just advertisement. We are not just, faces. that can help you target a particular community, but this is good for your business, this is good for your bottom line.
Okay.
I don't think anyone's here to be tokenized, right? We're not asking for charity, we're asking for change. And I think that the change is in that, hey, look, you should really think about what it means to have better business practices. I think during COVID, we saw that everybody was having supply chain issues because everybody used the same suppliers. You all use the exact same 4 or 5, specific brands. I won't even say what, race or individual, but you choose the same folks. And then you ask yourself, why is everyone not able to deliver? Why is everyone backed up in one country or another? And I think asking, hey, you know what? It's really important to actually bring a diversity of supplier and a diversity of solution to your customers is at the heart of what we are trying to talk about. This is good business. It's also a good thing to do. Like it can be many things at once. And so I think for us, we're not asking folks to do this because it feels good, but because it actually is good for everyone when we ultimately try to have a more inclusive economic system.
Okay. Last election, November, roughly 140 million people vote for president. And 25-30% of those were African-American voters. Why is it we can see my one vote, some impact in that group of 140 million, but when it comes to us spending our dollars, we think they have so little effect?
I mean, I think there's the illusion of choice oftentimes. I think the reality is that, there are a lot of competing forces that tell us that this is the best or the only. And I think we exist in a world of monopolies, right? That really try to cut off and choke off the actual diversity of the economic, options we have. And I think as well, the research also proves that people psychologically just think less of Black-owned businesses. There's some really great research that we can share out after this, and specific numbers are eluding me. But basically, the way it works is if you start a business in a Black neighborhood, that business, even if its quality of product is just as good in a white neighborhood, people are more likely to rate it poorer. They're likely to have a more hostile relationship to the business. And I think for us, we have to also believe in the value of our own stuff. We also have to encourage other folks to believe in the value of our stuff. But first, it definitely has to start internally. And I'm not someone to sit here and admonish Black folks. I'm not here to wag my finger at anybody and say, look, it's our fault that we're in this position. But what I am saying is that we will also, in order to have any solutions and any outcomes, it really is going to require us to have a deeper relationship with the kind of care and focus and understanding that small businesses have certain confines. Like that's what we're going to really have to own as well in terms of how do we get and believe more in the ability for us to serve each other.
Yeah. Black-owned businesses are by far the most undercapitalized and underfunded businesses, right? And so when you talk about these struggles that come with small business, that those are not specific or exclusive to Black-owned businesses. And I think that's another element when, Ronald was talking about sort of what the optics look like. Do you give grace to Amazon that you wouldn't give to, your local, corner shop? And I think those are the important sort of frameworks and perspectives that, come with resourcing, but also come with attention. And so I think there's multiple dynamics at play there, but most definitely it's important for us to really realize that, when you're dealing with small business, there are problems with small business, supply chain, stock. And so getting businesses capitalized and resourced, I think, is also a really big part of that. And that's where Buy Black really does hope to step in.
Okay. Braxton, you say, access to capital, a problem with all small businesses, probably magnified when we talk about a Black-owned business. Are there some other hindrances or impediments that are unique maybe to Black-owned businesses versus, non-Black and minority-owned businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a number of dynamics. Ron, I see you have your hand raised. You can go ahead.
And I'll say this, the U.S. Black Chamber's 5 pillars, right? And if you ask anybody at the organization, right, they have the 5 pillars are pretty simple. It's advocacy, access to capital, contracting, entrepreneur training, and chamber development. And what I mean to say is that it is always going to be a this and, right? Capital is always going to be an issue, or it doesn't always have to be an issue, but it has often been an issue. And then there are all these other elements. We haven't always had so much of business is relationships. The question is, who is saying your name in rooms you're not in?
Yep.
And so often, it is white firms, it is non-Black firms, it's organizations that have that lobbyist or have that person who can advocate for them, that it's not always about the quality of your product. It may not be that that's the reason why you didn't get the job or the contract or the relationship. It is simply who you know. And so for us, we really also think about how we make sure that we democratize access.
Okay.
And so that is why something like, the platform and Buy Black is really about ultimately ensuring that we can make sure that you can participate and we can know your name. I'll give an example. In years previously, we've worked with, if you go to our website, you'll see all the various big corporations we've worked with, from Google and Walmart and the NFL. We get calls from folks all the time asking us, hey, I'm looking for a business that can do this. I'm looking for a brand that can do that. And if I don't know about your business, then I may not be able to answer that question. And so it really is important to be able to, as I said, remove excuses. So when those corporations ask us, hey, I'm looking for a business that can do this, I can say, there's no excuse, so you shouldn't call me because I know about a business that can do that. And so we really think that, as I said, it is a 5-pronged problem that we are trying to address. But at the end of the day, what is also, I feel like, very unique is the relationships that we often lack. And it's important for us to realize that from the government side, from the corporate side, we want to be able to facilitate and support that.
Yeah, I mean, the name of the radio show, Community Focus, right? There's a lot of value, and I think the network building and the community oriented, development, and that's where local and regional chambers really step into the gap as well.
Yes.
And so it's really important to be thinking about, and I think we said this word a number of times, but like the coalition part of business building, it's actually not just you and your consumer, but it's you and other business owners, right? How can you help out with them? We talked about supply chain and B2B sort of oriented business and framework as well. I think that is, I think, unique to Black owned business and struggle. Ron mentioned is, we don't have the institutional access to bankers, institutional access to, government. We don't have the institutional access because we've been explicitly blocked and barred from that. Additionally, you think about how interpersonal or even individual access to, we talk about redlining and suppression, right? Your equity and access to even start your business up with access to credit, we're limited there. And so I think those are, again, not entirely unique to Black owned businesses, but the institutional barriers that have prevented us from accessing those over time and building that up over time. That is, I think, definitely unique to Black owned businesses, and why it's really important to build that network out.
Yeah. Folks, we're on Community Focus. Maybe since November, maybe it didn't come reality until January, but a lot of Black and brown folks, people of color, are feeling assaulted. They're feeling attacked. And maybe once we got over the initial shock, though, some folks kept saying, well, it won't be as bad as we think. Then they turn on the news and say, well, it's as bad as I thought. So what's the reaction? Some people have said, there've been all kinds of things. One of those reactions is the 40-day fast from Target. There have been some other ideas, boycotts that are thrown out there, and I'm not going to tell you which one to choose, but our goal is to inform you. So we're talking about this 40-day fast from Target. I can tell you that I have a close family member who works for Target, and when you talk about what's other alternatives, I pray that she'll be well, and knowing that family member, they understand what's going on and what's at stake here. But we're talking about when something happens, how do we react? And not just individually, but how can we react collectively when we feel like we're being assaulted or attacked collectively? And so we talk about the 40-day fast from Target. We also talk about, as Ron said, the next day after the 40 days. What do we do? Where do we go? We're talking about Black businesses and things they do. Let me ask you all this question. Again, we get a lot of entrepreneurs, young people coming on here, and you all expose a lot of businesses. If you're serious about going from a hobby that you do in your home to being a real business, what are some things that that you just have to do?
Yeah. Ron, I was going to say, I think one of the things that definitely comes to mind is that you need to know your consumer and know your numbers. And so that's one thing. there is a fascination, I think, and it kind of is pervasive with like the get it out of the mud, like from
Hmm.
scratch and just go in on that. I think many of us and a lot of the businesses that we have on Buy Black are, in part are part-time operated, right? Where
Hmm.
they have a one job and they're doing, they're conducting their business, freelance on the side in addition to their job. And so I think there it is completely okay and completely sufficient. It doesn't make you any less legitimate of a business if that is your relationship to your business, right? And that it is not something that you do, 12 hours a day, every day of the week. And that's completely fine. It doesn't make you less legitimate. I think know your numbers and know your target
Hmm.
is really important. I think another element, and when we talk about how valuable and how you truly gain access to that sort of next level, both official branding and consumer appetite, is get your paperwork in order as well. And what I mean by that
Hmm.
is formally file. You don't necessarily need to be an LLC. You can be a sole proprietor, but make sure you have your documents in order, your filings, keep access to your receipts, you file your taxes, and that those are the sort of qualifications that we look at, but also other certification programs look at.
Hmm.
So Ronald mentioned, do you do business? Is your city doing business? Can you fit in there? Is your state doing business? Can you fit in there?
Hmm.
And the federal government and even state governments are the largest purchasers of goods and services in the
Hmm.
country. Um, Before a lot of this firing, I believe the number was at like $1.3 trillion worth of
Yeah.
spend, right, in contracts. You get
Yes.
a little tiny piece of that. So everything from light bulbs to janitorial services. Um, Thinking about who your consumer is really, really important. And if
Yeah.
you want to gain access to that pool of capital, you need to have your paperwork in order. And I think that's
Mhm.
definitely something that we notice when we're looking at certification applications. And when we find out whether folks are pre-qualified or not qualified is, hey, have you filed your taxes? Um, do you have access to your incorporation, your filing documents? That's
Mhm.
going to be a barrier for you. And so you
Yeah.
don't have to do that today, tomorrow. But I think
Mhm.
if you're looking to access that next level, that's a big part of kind of understanding your business. That's one thing I'd say is super essential
Okay.
about getting serious about your business.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand, and we have folks, and we try to kind of understand it accordingly. Like, is this a business or is it a hustle? And I
Mm.
think and I think,
No,
that's
Yeah.
not
hey,
to
yeah,
poo. Yeah, that's not
yeah.
to poo poo. It's like, what is the outcome, right? And I think when I say that, because that changes your orientation, right?
Mhm.
When someone asks me, "Hey, I'm looking for a $5 million contract," I can't give that to a hustle, right? And so it really is important
Right.
to understand, like, come prepared and be business ready wherever
Yeah.
possible. And that's not
Mhm.
about looking a certain type of respectability politic. It is saying, hey, look, how do I have the deepest scalable relationship with my customer? If you own
Mhm.
a hair salon, yes, you can serve X number of customers, but can you also potentially, at that vertical integration, sell your own products to your customers, right? How actually can I have a relationship where I am able to get them to be advocates, whether it's I have a referral program where they get a discount on the actual bringing in of new customers.
Mhm.
My point is, in order to do your business well, you need to find one person who loves what you do and then figure out how to convert what's inside of them into other people. And so
Yes.
that is, it's almost proselytizing. It's almost religious in that
Sure.
way, where you are
Yeah.
trying to get someone to believe in what you do at the small scale you do it and say, I can do it for you too. I can do it for someone
Mhm.
else too. And that
Sure.
is about what I think is the fundamentals of the sale, of selling the
Mhm.
idea of what your business does, even if it doesn't do it yet.
Sure. Got it. I know one of the things we talked about off camera was, your background with technology. Let's tie that into our discussion about black businesses, small businesses. Man, the world changes, uh, constantly with
Every
relation to
day.
technology, keeping up. But educate me a little bit about what you all do, and how do we talk about that in the context of helping black-owned businesses in this technology area?
Yeah, yeah. For technology, I think Ronald's point about, sort of the vertical integration and scalability, technology is great for that. And so you can see it in everything from, consumer relations management, where you have some sort of software where you're not losing leads because people are reaching out to you and you're not
Mhm.
able to even tap them, or you're not able to kind of keep a collection of that insight,
Mhm.
to, AI services that are going to help you as a small business owner,
Mhm.
do the work of maybe 2 or 3 people as well.
Sure.
Right. And so
Mhm.
as the world evolves, it is important, I think, to keep some degree of consciousness kind of about what tools are available to you as a business owner and as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Right. And I think
Yes.
we try and embed and imbue those same practices into Buy Black, right? So when we talk about how are there ways that we can be more efficient, but also be scalable in terms of surfacing your business, that's why and how the sort of directory as a sort of side component, it evolves out of the work that we do. Buy Black started, and I think we started with a focus that we want to help all Black business. And that originally manifested in the sort of B2B, business to business, business to government contracting legwork. But when we started to see how search was used, and how people were using search, they were looking for those direct businesses in their neighborhood. And so when we think about our certification program and getting you into those rooms and identifying, Ron said, hustle or business, right?
Mhm.
There's calculus that's done there. But as a byproduct and a side effect of that, you gain visibility on the platform. And so we are hopefully creating advocates by way of actually getting to our targets and our identified objectives of increasing our share of of the corporate dollar, generally speaking, and I think additionally the government dollar.
Mhm.
um, and I think that is how we think about technology. I myself am technology. We try and be tech forward, and I think we also believe that Black folks deserve high quality digital experiences, and so often it
Mhm.
feels like we're deprived of those, right? Or we don't necessarily expect that of our community, and we don't think that has to be the case. And
Mm.
so that's something that we really try to we take in expertise that we have, we take in perspective that we have, we get smart people to work on this, and we feel like it's worth it. And hopefully our customer base also does believe that as well.
If I can also add, so a couple of things on the idea of technology. One is, I think it's really important to understand that Buy Black is built, as I said, by Black designers, by Black engineers, product managers. This is something that is built to prove the point that you can build great things for Black folks and by Black folks and not compromise on that mission and that outcome, right? So on the technology side, every bug you see is us, but
That's
everything you
us.
love
We
is
got to
also
own
us.
it.
But I also will say, I think what's really
Mhm.
important is to at its core also tell Black folks when it comes to technology, right? Be weary of the newest thing.
Mhm.
If your business is supposed to outlast the trend, then don't follow it. And
Okay.
my point is that, a few years ago, they would have told you need to have a crypto wallet that
You need
allows
an
you to buy
NFT.
Bitcoin directly so that you can have a distributed ledger. They're going to give you a
Uh-huh.
bunch of buzzwords. And today you need to have an AI agent that allows you to do this thing. Be cautious. And that is not to say that you don't integrate technology and you are not considerate of it. And, we can give a bunch of buzzwords. And that's not actually
Mhm.
the point, is to have a word salad or something like that. My point
Okay.
is that be diligent in the process of knowing which technologies you believe have the lasting power to ultimately help you grow your business and hold on to it, because there are both switching costs and there is an
Yep.
investment in learning that we often take as, I'm missing out on something. I need to do this thing because I saw some people do this.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask, do you have a website? Do you have a easy way for people to communicate to you? Are you able to triage the email account you have to understand which ones are leads and which ones are issues with the product and which ones are returns? Understand the fundamentals. And that is actually a core way that ultimately allows you to get back to doing what you love most, which is providing services, providing products. Always
Ron's.
find a solution and technology that gets you back to doing what it is you want to be doing, and less
Yep.
administrative.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll say on that, I think Ron has spoken to something that's really, really effectual, and something that we try and, embody here, is that the technology is meant to be the scaling factor of you and your business, right? So like, it's not technology for technology's sake. That'd be a backwards relationship with how you're supposed to be building. Where we're building the technology to get to the consumer, it's the consumer and how do I actually scale myself out? How do I scale my expertise and my team out? And so that is kind of the identified point. It's not the trend or the latest technology. And there's a delicate balance to be struck there. Oftentimes, the boring solution is probably the most efficient one. How is it that you can take advantage of technology and just a general breadth and awareness of those tools and say, hey, you know what, this I can incorporate into my existing workflows well. But yeah, Ron, you mentioned switching costs. That's big. You don't want to end up in a loop where, oh, this is the latest chat. They told you it was ChatGPT. Now it's this new one that just dropped, and that's all. Be thinking about the sort of motivations behind the technology and what it is embodying collectively and how that might or might not work for you. But it is a delicate balance, and you don't know what you don't know. You don't want to miss out on things, but do realize that many things do come and go in terms of how relevant they feel for a moment and how, marketable it makes you or your product.
Okay. Yeah, been doing this show for a few years, and one or two things happens. I'm a pastor, so it happens in church too. When people are quiet, we're getting likes on the screen, but not a lot of questions. That usually means you're informing the audience. And appreciate that folks are listening. We're getting likes and people watching the program, so appreciate that. And I'm gonna forget to say this, but again, I'm probably a half generation on you guys. I'm officially an OG in my community, so to see you young brothers represent your topic and continue to push our people forward. I want to commend you all and encourage you to keep up the good work. Which kind of leads me to one of my thoughts. We talk about historically, the boycott in Birmingham, and Dr. King became the face of it. But there was so many other people who, even in that community, were leaders. We started learning more about so many other names who now started to come to surface, who were not just part of the bus boycott, but were significant even in the civil rights movement. He kind of became the name and face, and it seems like sometimes there's a generation that's looking for who's going to be our next guy.
Who's our face? Yeah.
Yeah. And I say this to say to people like yourselves, it's probably bigger than just one name and one face now. When we interact different, and so even when we talk about things like this, this 40-day fast, there's a tendency sometimes. Well, I would do it, but I don't like this person who's the community leader. I don't like this person. Talk to our people about how you see that as a little bit younger generation, and just how that's a part of where we're trying to go as a people, and even in this business area.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a great point raised. I think today, and this is also a generation, and even we start to feel a little old, looking down a little bit. But things like TikTok and personality, where everyone actually has access to influence and platform.
Yeah.
And that democratization of that also makes it really hard to discern and see who's really right. Who do you really like and who do you not like? And also it creates these parasocial relationships with folks where they say something that you didn't necessarily agree with, and now you don't like them anymore. It's this whiplash. Yeah. One thing I will say is we are completely in a new space. I think, access to social media and access to the way we access news and information and the plethora of that, it just has changed, I think, how we color and context people who are our leaders. One thing I'll also say is that, leaders can, like, if you have a individual who's the face of a movement, they can be, either, discredited, they can be deposed, whatever it looks like, and then your movement evaporates.
Yeah.
And I think there is both real strength in having a center figure who can be your fearless leader that's championing you and representing, kind of everything that you want. But I think there's that danger as well. I do believe that coalition efforts like this, participation in there is really valuable, and you can actually see your own individual impact as a component of a lot larger operation. So I think that if you can really look at your own individual spend, your own individual relationship with places like Target, you yourself are a leader in that regard, and you can see yourself among a bunch of others. But our relationship, I think, to leadership is different in that everybody has access to it, and as a result, it feels like maybe no one has access to it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to you, Ron, for final comment. Feel free to comment on it.
Yeah, I think, one of the last thing I'm thinking about is, like, it's important to do your research. It's important for you to believe in the things that are ultimately, being discussed. I encourage everyone to ultimately unpack that. But, even when it comes to this fast, it's really interesting. The LA Times, the family, the descendants of the founder of Target, they wrote in the LA Times, they said, we are alarmed at how quickly the business community has given in to the current administration's retaliatory threats. It is not illegal for a company to create a business model based on what it believes to be important, ethical in its business practices. And so I think what we really want people to understand is this is something that universally people are concerned about. And so it is important for you to go out there and understand your impact and your power. And to your point on the history, we want to build movements without martyrs. That doesn't mean that we don't have people have to sacrifice something, but it's important that we don't let ourselves be exclusive in who we believe can provide the answers to these solutions.
Okay. Mr. Busby, I got 15 seconds for this off-topic question. Someone says, what's your thoughts on losing Dwayne Wiggins, Tony, since you are from the Bay Area?
I think both me and Braxton are here, but what I will say is that we obviously lost an icon, but I also think that what's really great is to be from a place that has such amazing music depth, and that, the Bay Area continues to make great music. And so our best days are not behind us, and so I think that if you come to the Bay and you see the scene, there's a lot to be proud of. But we are ultimately a product of folks like Tony that have brought so much, great to the Bay.
Yeah.
Guys,
I'm sorry to hear that. I just that's my first time hearing about it.
Me too. Hey, thanks so
terrible.
much for joining us today, man. This has been awesome. Here's what I want to do. After the 40-day fast, you guys are going to gather some statistics. I want to have you come back. Let's talk about what we learned from that. And, what directions we're going, but what impact. Let's look at the numbers. What impact it's had. Braxton,
400
Gunter,
after the 40.
Pardon me.
The 400 after the 40.
400 after the 40. It is the beginning, not the end.
All right.
Melvin, I'd say also if folks are interested in supporting those business owners directly, if you're interested in participating or not even framing it as a participation in the boycott and just want to support Black business owners and their products, check us out. That's byblack.us. You can find our products, and our actual general brands that are in your area. You can look at our city guides that we've spun up. But the product focus is really what we're looking at. And that's going to be where we talk about from Buy Black's perspective. How are we looking at direct attribution and our impact, right? It's one thing to say, look, Target's share price fell from here to here over 40 days. What does that mean? It's another thing entirely to say, hey, you know what? We actually translated a distaste or not even a distaste, but a directed action away from Target and saying, hey, look, we translated that into real support and real dollars for Black business owners.
All right.
So
thanks a lot.
Check us
Folks,
out.
this has been Community Focus. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Braxton. Gregory T, get well. Lady J, thank you for making me look good and sound good. To Big Rob and PA, I thank you all that you always give us, not just me, you give this community this tremendous opportunity. Appreciate it. Folks, I was at a funeral earlier today of a good friend. Make sure the people that you love and care about know it. Don't take it for granted. Be blessed.